and thank you very much for attending this this very first Regio1st training session. To allow people in, just a minute. So the purpose of that very first training session will be to cover the first stage of the framework, which is preparation. So in this session, we will cover all the preliminary elements that are necessary to develop an effective regional energy plan. So the Southeast Energy Agency is doing that first presentation. The presentation will be made mainly by Johan Müller, which is our chief data analyst and also engineer. The presentation should last around an hour. Do not hesitate to use the chat to ask any possible question, and Johan or myself will be able to answer that either at the end of each section. Otherwise, we should be able to take some time at the end of the presentation to have a chat together and answer any question you might have. So thank you very much. I'm gonna hand you to Johan to proceed to the presentation, and see you later.
Thanks, Martin. So yeah, through that first stage there, I will go through 4 parts. The first one will be about determining the geographical area and the scope for planning. So looking at the sectors and the energy emissions there. Second will be the roles and responsibilities. So we'll be looking at the internal team plus other stakeholders. And third part will be looking at the just a quick review of I suppose the EU directives that are in place, and then after, when you have existing regional plan, so or like what you need to do to review them, and after try to incorporate them in your current plan, and then we finish with quickly with I suppose with setting up the framework for developing the regional energy plan. So it'd be looking at I suppose timeline, resources needed, resources as a personal people, plus after the finance, and then after in terms of time, I suppose if there's an additional requirement in terms of getting the plan approved. So we'll start with the first section there, the geographical area and scope of planning. So for those there, I suppose like a lot of the slide will be extracted from another European project that have been completed in the past, which is Energy Watch. So we were looking at the preparation for suppose the completion of CCAP, which is a Sustainable Energy Climate Action Plan. And so like a lot of the information will come from the Covenant of Mayor or suppose the guidebooks to complete a plan. Right. So in terms of setting the boundaries, it is recommended to I suppose to focus on reducing the energy consumption in the local territory, but also matching energy demand with supply of sustainable energy by improving energy efficiency and promoting the use of local renewable energy sources. So the geographical boundaries of the local territory are to be suppose the administrative boundaries of the entity. So we'll be looking at the municipality, region, and governed by the local authority. It is encouraged to I suppose to use the nomenclature of units for territorial statistics, which are the NUTS region. So here, like you know, I suppose Europe has been I suppose all the region there has been identified at different level. So you have NUTS level 1, like I suppose that's the countries, and after the more granular you go, the higher you go in terms of levels, and as well there in terms of if you want to go a bit deeper, there's the local administrative units that were equivalent to NUTS level 4 and 5 in the past up to 2016. So you could be using those as well. There's just a link of where to find the I suppose categorization of each of the regions. then when you set up your boundaries and define your scope there, you need to, again, as part of the CCAP, normally we are looking at the type of greenhouse gas emissions that can be included. So you were looking at the GX emissions that are coming from the sources in the energy sources in the territory. You'll be looking at the indirect emissions that are consumed but not maybe not produced inside the local territory. So if you have a power plant somewhere in the, if you let, sometimes I see in Ireland there may be maybe 4 or 5 power plants spread in the country, but after you have, in terms of CCAP or regional plan, you'll have 26 of them. So not every region will have their own power plant, say, installed in their territory. And then after you'll be looking at the non-energy related direct emissions. So you'll be, again, that would be everything that's coming from agriculture or some of the industries. And in terms of the CCAP at the time, we'll be looking at Scope 1 and Scope 2 emissions that need to be included in the carbon footprint. So again, that's part of the process of defining your, in terms that as imposed, that will be module 3 when you do your baseline. Here, just again, to outline the sectors. So when you have the direct fuel combustion, you'll have your buildings, equipment, facilities, that will be, plus after you'll have your transport. When you have your indirect emissions, so again, you'll be looking, or are your local energy generation facilities, or again, you'll be looking at what you consume from, I suppose, more regional or national power plants. And then after the other emissions will be, again, from industries or waste, and potentially as well agriculture. In another way to see it is, to get clear the scope. One, which is again Scope 1, Scope 2, and Scope 3. So there are different graph with outlining the sectors that you want to incorporate in your plan. So again, when you're through the CCAP, Scope 1 and Scope 2 were mandatory. So we'll be looking at the agriculture, waste, stationary fuel, industry, transportation, plus after the grid supply energy, so what is used in the country. So as I say earlier, so the main target sectors for CCAP were, when you were to split them in terms of mitigation, like for the future, in terms of mitigation measures and adaptation measures, you'll have for mitigation, you'll have your buildings, equipment, facilities, and urban transport. Plus after you'll have your local electricity production. So we'll be looking at your solar PV or wind farms, combining net power plants, and after your district heating. As part of the plan, you should cover areas where local authorities can influence energy consumption on the long term. So if that's about their own energy consumption, or as well that's the one that through planning they can have an impact or influence on what is installed. Again, there as part of the CCAP, normally industrial sector wasn't a key target. However, if the local authorities can decide if they want to include it, if they think that there's they need to be a big push on those, or if there's measures that are going to be implemented directly by the industries. And for the adaptation, you'll be looking at the vulnerable sectors and areas. So again, there'll be, again, the buildings, transport, your energy, your water management, land use, and then after agriculture and forestry and others. But basically, again, through the comment of Mayor, there were a few sectors that, again, they were advised to input. And again, that's mainly in terms of the energy production. So because there can be, at local level, you might not have very good, I suppose, you'll have no influence of what is produced. So, depending on the I suppose, methodology that you're following, if you using the common of measures, you'll have the different sectors again. That's something that you might be looking at the start, defining which, like if you are a signatory of the common of measures, you might follow their methodology in terms of defining their own sectors. So again, we'll have the building, transport, other energy, and other non-energy related energy supply. If you are a member of the Climate Alliance, you'll be looking at the, again, private households, manufacturing, municipalities, and transport. You'll be targeting those. And then after, if you're more in terms of the greenhouse gas protocol, you'll be looking at the non-energy related sector, I suppose, energy, greenhouse gas emissions. So more about the agriculture, the industrial processes, and waste. Plus after wastewater treatment plants and other transportation in terms of try to get to have a better, I suppose, understanding of the all this. Have a bigger scope if you in terms of your sectors. In terms of again, when we're talking about the methodologies, that's something at the start you might be looking at. Is there's a you have different guidelines that have been published. So here just a list. So you could be looking at those at the start and just to help you define your boundaries and define your scope, suppose the sectors that you want to include. And again, there in terms of the materials, just a guidebook as well. And again, I was saying that some of the information are just in this slide in terms of have been extracted from that guidebook. So as a summary there, first step is I suppose to determine the geographical area and scope of planning. Yeah, like I suppose to do that, you need to look at your, I suppose you need to include the areas that of interest. If it's just your own municipalities, or if it's entire region, and then after I suppose you need to I suppose select your sectors and identify your energy sources in the area, and again, as I say, like the key sectors will be the building equipment, the facilities, your transport, your energy supply, and then after and after you have to decide if you want to add your other non-energy related, so which are the agriculture, forestry, and fisheries, wastewater management. So, and again, those about the non-energy related will be coming back in terms when we will be looking at the existing energy plans. There might be, I suppose, because you might have plans in the area in terms of your water management, or I suppose new urban plans, you might be willing to input them in your regional plan. For the next section, which is the roles and responsibilities, I suppose when you start your the creation of your regional energy plan, you'll be looking at establishing an energy and a climate change team. So those will be looking at implementing the sustainable energy and climate action plan, because I suppose that's something, again, for some of the areas will be something new, so it will be something changing, and I suppose you need a lot of resources there, so that's a demanding process. So that process is not just about planning, creating your plan. It needs to be managed, and after you'll have to look at the implementation and monitoring in the future. So that requires a collaboration, like to create that plan, it requires collaboration, coordination between the different departments inside the local authority. Plus, after you'll be looking at the, I suppose, other stakeholders stakeholders that could impact as well, I suppose, the good implementation of your plan. And the main thing is that, and that's one of the challenges as well, so it needs to be, if you want that plan to be a success, it should not be conceived by different departments of the local authority as an external issue, but it has to be integrated in the everyday process and coordinating with plans and programs in force. So it's not something that you just want to, when the plan has been completed, parking on the shelf, and then after forget about it. It needs to be you need in the process or the operation of your local authority, you need to make sure that that the plan has been written or has been made and be able to, I suppose, as best as you can, incorporate it in your I suppose original existing process. So when you want to create your energy climate action team, I suppose the first thing you need to do is probably looking at what are the existing, I suppose, team in the organization. You might have an energy team in the past, again, because climate change has been, I suppose, through the CCAP there since 2018 has been added. If there's any environmental teams as well that are already established, or if the local authority is going through different, I suppose, ISO standard, there might be a team in place in terms of the energy management or the, I suppose, sustainable plans as well. When you are creating your team, you want, I suppose, you have different. I suppose you want to first in there need to first section of the team will be looking at the climate policy. So they'll be steering the committee. There'll be a section of the team that will be steering the steering committee. Composed of the politician and senior management. So that's to show the political involvement for the completion of the plan. You need another number of working groups. They'll be composed of the energy planning manager. You want the key personnel from the different departments that will be involved in the creation of the plan. And then after, if you have any other suppose regional agencies that you might need key people from there. And then yeah, I think that's repetitive there. Sorry for that. And then after, when you have your team there, you need to appoint a coordinator. So they'll be, I suppose, making liaison between the, I suppose, senior management and after the different working group of the looking at the plan. So it is below there for each of the I suppose main groups what I suppose their responsibilities or their roles. So for the senior manager to be provided strategic direction and the necessary political support to the process and the mainstream climate change policy across different departments. On the second group there, coordinate the activities around specific issues, possibly contribution from non-municipal key actors directly involved in CCAP actions. So again, that's the key non-municipal key actors would be any regional agencies that will probably be looking at the energy efficiency in the other sectors that are not only the local authorities, but they might be looking at the domestic and the non-domestic. And then after the other group, to help understand cities' vulnerabilities to climate change from municipal sector perspective, focusing on real city needs and available data. So again, that will be linking the citizen and the different stakeholders. So say we need, like, as part of the energy team, you need external support as well, and that's only depend on the mainly depend on the size and more resources available. Depending on the size of the local authority, I suppose. They might like your team might benefit from the assistance, or if you're signatory for covenant of mayor, there'll be a covenant coordinators or energy agencies again. So they are just an explanation in terms of the covenant coordinator. So it'd be looking at for provinces, region, national public bodies, metropolitan areas, grouping of local authorities which are committed to provide strategic guidance, financial and technical support to signatories. There's other supporters, as I said, there are energy agencies. They might have been active in local energy policy for decades. And again, their knowledge and expertise could be very useful for the people completing the plan, and especially if you're lacking technical capacities. So again, as part of the creating the plan, I suppose the preparation of the plan, and as well as later on I suppose again we'll see that in module 3 there when you have to do the baseline emission inventory or the risk and vulnerabilities assessment. You want people with technical capacity there to complete those, and depending on the size of the local authority, you might not have those in the people in the local authority might not be suitable. Again, so do the different I suppose support. They might, like through the community might be able to get financial support and opportunities to local authorities for the development and implementation of their CCAP. They might be able to assist in the organization of local energy days and simulation tools, and report and as well report to the Commission on the results. And again, after you'll be looking at the preparation of the energy plan. In the area covered by the energy collection of energy data, the estimation of energy balance, as well as short, medium, and long-term energy policies and plans. And so they'll be looking as well at the collaboration between local authorities and regional offices. So that's what you want to be looking at. So again, we're talking about the coordinator to liaise between the different departments. So here are just the duties of that coordinator. So to execute the decision of the mayor and the city manager, coordinate the work of the energy climate change team, assign the tasks to the different members, collect as well the information from them, communicate with the stakeholders and consultants that might have been appointed, organize the meetings, and again after feedback as well to the when you execute the decision, but as well feedback about the progress and I suppose if there's any issues in the development of the plan. If you're signatory by Commissioner of Mayor, I suppose you have to liaise with the Commissioner of Mayor directly in terms of in terms of the progress, and then after in terms of the monitoring as well. And I suppose there, and that will be part of the framework later on, you need to identify any training necessary for, suppose, to empower the staff that are, I suppose, part of the process. Then after you have your different officers, so energy, environment, or climate change officers, they'll be, again, performing the tasks assigned to them by potentially the coordinator. They'll be supporting the work of the whole team, providing knowledge and on the, I suppose, on the different sector of work, like I suppose, again, and after they'll be mainly undertaking tasks, participating to the meetings, and mainly providing support there. And after you have your technician, that will be the one completing completing some of the tasks and supporting the working I suppose the different officers, and will be on the field there. I suppose updating them in terms of the current state of the different projects, and again that will be more in terms of the implementation. Here, just have an example of the city of Aberdeen in terms of their team. So they are different. Suppose they have different groups that were part of the structure. They're the first. They're the, I suppose, their steering group. So made of different 18 members. And then after their working group again. That would have been, I suppose, breakdown with people I suppose more people working coming from the same group, but more the people with more the officer type. And then after for each of the, I suppose, the tasks that are assigned or the different subtasks, they will have subgroups created. And for that's a municipality in Lakatamia in Cyprus. So they have their own coordinate. Again, they have you have your suppose your managers, the mayor, council manager, or city manager. Then after you have coordinator in between and your different departments. I suppose supporting. So your environment department, you might have something about energy or the climate. Your financial department after technical department. Then, as well as part of the structure, you have your advisory committee. So again, that's the same example there, just to show what are the position in terms of the different members. So you have your, so suppose your manager, your officer, and then after you have your different department officers. As part of the advisory committee, that's when we were looking at the key stakeholders. Those stakeholders need to be people that are whose interests are affected by the issue. So by the, I suppose, would be affected by, I suppose, the implementation of the plan. Whose activities could be affected by the plan as well. Process control information, resources and expertise needed for strategy formulation and implementation. So people that, again, we were talking about regional agencies, that they might have the information in terms of to support you creating your baseline emission inventory or energy inventory, or you'll be looking at different in terms of the energy. So it would be the, I suppose, companies that are looking at the distribution and transmission of the energy, or in terms of stakeholders, you're looking at those that suppose that are needed for the good successful implementation of your plan. In terms of stakeholders, then here just a list of I suppose of the potential stakeholders you can include in your team for the implementation of your plan. So again, you have your, suppose yourself, the local authority, your different departments, your energy agencies, if there's a national or regional administrations, or you have your neighboring local authorities. Just make sure that there's consistency in the plans and the actions that are going to take place. Your financial partners, I suppose institutional stakeholders again, chambers of commerce, chambers of agriculture, and engineers. If you have any building companies, the developers, housing authorities that you want, like, again, that's when there's existing plan in place about try to, I suppose, develop your city. You might be interested with those. Energy suppliers and utilities, again, something for later. In terms of try to understand what's the strategy for their strategy for the development of the region or at the national level. So we'll be looking at transport as well if there's any organization there. Your water services, different businesses, industries that are installed in the area. And then after, basically any existing structures. If there's any universities as well, or in terms of the education, there might be, you might be able to get support there in terms of, for your plan in terms of getting students or doctorate to do to look at their own work, and or in the future as well for the implementation of your plan actions. Then after, again, different organizations in terms of the tourists. So faces and the agriculture community, and then after you need some, suppose you can get support as well from, like we say about media, but it's probably more in terms of the design. When you have your plan completed, you want to make sure that this is well, suppose, advertised, and you might need to get a design team to produce that. So again, if we go back to the example of La Catamia municipality, there was the advisory group. So the advisory group, they decided to add, suppose, people that are from outside the municipality. So they were starting with the suppose the neighboring municipalities that had similar challenges and opportunities to, and there was the opportunity to join the actions. They were looking at their, I suppose here it's the National Energy Agency that can provide support from the community of mayor, from their own community of mayor knowledge for the creation or the development of their plan, and then after I suppose any additional technical support provided from the scientific and technical chamber. After as well, they'll be looking at the different other departments. Should be looking at the water in terms of the flood risk management, public works. It was just for their I suppose their transport. I suppose to look at their transport. Again, as well in the Department of Environment. Again, looking at the climate change and adaptation to the national level, and then after there was any representative from the citizens, just to make sure that, and I suppose that to be part later on in terms of the adoption of the plan. If you need to go through a full consultation with the citizens, it's probably interested to have those input early enough in the plan. So when you have your stakeholders, it is important to probably try to be able to, again, assign or to understand what are their priorities and what would be their role. So for that, you can map, I suppose you can create a stakeholder mapping. So, and why that's important, because you want to make sure that your process has been transparent and democratic, that the decisions are taken together with, with your stakeholders and citizens, and that they are, I suppose, as well aware of what I suppose what others are doing, and that they can input about their knowledge. It will help, I suppose, to improve the quality and acceptance, effectiveness, and legitimacy of the plan. There'll be a sense of the participation and in planning to make, suppose, to ensure the long-term acceptance, viability, and support of strategies and measures. And when you have stakeholders, like as part of the process, it is often the case that you get stronger support from external stakeholders than your internal management or staff of the local authority. And again, because the external stakeholders might have a better knowledge of what is in terms of the technical knowledge in terms of the energy again, or the climate risk. So to create that mapping, you need to look at the influence, relevance, expertise, I suppose necessity of urgency or interest. So those different categories there, you need to suppose identify for each of the stakeholders what are the priority in terms of creating the plan. So you'll be looking at those different items. When you look at different stakeholders, one solution is again to map them. So use that relevant expertise interest graph. So you'll have on the x-axis you have the relevance, the y-axis you have your interest, and then after so you'll be each dot will be the different stakeholders. You have to position them on the I suppose the graph, and after depending on their expertise, create a I suppose you increase or decrease the size of your the dots. And so with that matrix, you'll be able to show, suppose, to identify, I suppose, categorize the different stakeholders in terms of show the one that are the more useful for you in terms of the different section of the plan. So again, depending of where they are on the graph, if they show little or no interest for the project, but they are highly relevant for the implementation of it, you should, I suppose, try to meet their needs. but they don't require more engagement. If they show high interest for the project and they have low relevance, you should try to get them to probably take part a bit more in the process. And but after mainly the engagement of those different local authority, different actors, it's mandatory when they are relevant. So the more relevant they are, the more engaged they need to be. So again, there, as I say, you need to categorize them. So and again, that's just to help you understand what you need to do for those stakeholders as part of the plan. Just a few examples. What you can add is just in terms of the sorry. You can just inform. You can add a core code as well there if they are depending of their understanding of the plan and if they'll be in favor or not or the plan of the plan. Another way to categorize the stakeholders is to use the ROCKY matrix that I suppose is available on the Regio1st website. So that's a model that describes the participation by the various roles in completing tasks or delivering of deliverers of the Regio1st framework. So as a ROCKY, you'll be looking at with responsible, accountable, who need to be consulted or informed, and that matrix will help determine the roles and responsibilities to establish a clear repartition of the tasks and duties. And the matrix is meant to facilitate communication and collaboration among the planning team members. There'll be a distinction between a role and individually identified people. A role is a descriptor of an associated set of tasks, may be performed by many people, and one person can perform many roles. For example, an organization may have 10 people who can perform the role of a project manager. Also, traditionally, each project only has one project manager at any one time, and the person who is able to perform the role of project manager may also be able to perform the role of a business analyst or tester in the future. So in terms of the ROCKY, then yeah, just a screenshot of the spreadsheet that you have on the website. You'll be looking again at the who is responsible. So those who are responsible for the correct completion of the task. There's at least one role with a participation type of responsible, although others can be dedicated to assist the work required. People that are accountable, that's the one ultimately answerable for the correct and thorough completion of the deliverable or task. The one who ensures the prerequisites of the tasks are met and who dedicates the work to those responsible. In other words, an accountable must sign off work that responsible provides. There must be only one accountable specified for each task or deliverable. After you have the people consulted, so those whose opinion are sought, typically subject matter experts, and with whom there is no two-way communication. And after people informed, those who are kept up to date on progress, often only on completion of the task or deliverable, with whom there is just a one-way communication. So you can see here, I suppose, and again, that Excel will be, you can extend it, but I suppose the team has been split between the internal team, so the different people that you have in your local authority, and then after the other external team, people from the different stakeholders that are interested in the plan. So as conclusion there, it is essential to define upstream the roles and responsibilities of everyone involved in the project, internally and externally. This will ensure the process of realizing the regional energy plan is smooth, efficient, and well understood. The use of mapping or matrix tools such as the Rocky Matrix is highly recommended to facilitate communication between the teams and to keep a steady organization throughout the planning process. The next item will be to identify and review existing regional energy plans. So I suppose at the first, initially, I suppose you'll be looking at any European directives in terms that you'll be interested in terms of climate change or energy efficiency or greenhouse gas emission reduction. So here just a few background information in terms of the energy efficiency, the targets directive rules there. So again, in 2012, it was directive in 2012, and then in 2018 set the rules and obligations for the EU's for the EU country in terms of their target for 2020 and 2030 in terms of the energy efficiency. There's rules in directive in terms of the energy performance of buildings, in terms of making them more energy efficient, and that should contribute significantly to the different EU members achieving its energy and climate goals. Cogeneration of heat and power. The cogeneration is promoted at the EU level, again, to improve the energy efficiency in Europe. The use of energy label and eco-design, again, it's promoted and promoted just to for the use of more energy efficient products and helping customers to save energy and money. In terms of the financing energy efficiency, they are mobilizing private financing for energy efficiency investments. So I suppose the different models available there to support the different municipalities to be able to invest in terms of energy efficiency. And in terms of heating and cooling, there's different strategies that have been launched to address the large amount of energy used by the building sector and by the industry sector in terms of their, I suppose, heating and cooling requirements. There's a list of directives as well in terms of directive and law. That have been, I suppose, signed off. And one of them is, I suppose, as part of the European Green Deal, there's the intermediate target of reducing net greenhouse gas emission by at least 55% by 2030 compared to 1990 levels. There's a directive. That was part of 2020, just to set up binding measures to help the EU reach its 20% energy efficiency target. So so that's different measures requiring the different members to achieve energy savings equivalent to annual reduction of 1.5% in national energy sales. I suppose they're making energy efficient renovation to at least 2% of their buildings. I suppose the completion of a national long-term renovation strategy. The use of energy efficiency certificates when I suppose selling and renting buildings, and as well I suppose the preparation of national energy efficiency action plans every 3 years for each of the member states. Another directive, again, to adopt, I suppose, that the member states should encourage public bodies, including at regional or local level, and social housing bodies governed by public law, with due regard for their respective competencies and administrative setup. They should adopt an energy efficiency plan as part of their broader climate and environmental plan. They should put in place an energy management system, which would include energy audits as part of the implementation of their plan, and they should use where appropriate energy service companies energy performance contracting to finance renovation and implement plans to maintain or improve energy efficiency in the long term. And again, that's probably a repeat of one of the previous slide there in terms of the renovation of I suppose renovation of some of their buildings, and as well as and others. I suppose at the national again in terms of the like we'll be looking more at the municipal level, but yeah. So at the municipal level, there often there'll be the plans will be fed from a national plan, and again that's due to the EU directive that all member states of the European Union must have submitted their own plan, and then after submit an update every 3 years. So because of that, different municipalities will have had to produce their own plan. So in Slovenia, we're in the local energy concepts, in Ireland, the local authority action plan, and then after for any covenant of major signatories, there'll be the sustainable and the energy and climate action plan. Within the local authority, there are sometimes conflicting policies and procedures. So a first step is to identify the existing municipal, regional, and national policies, plans and procedures and regulations that affect energy and climate issues within the local authority. For example, national adaptation strategy in climate adapt serve as a good entry point for existing information on adaptation at country level. Cities can also draw an existing national risk vulnerability assessment and available climate protection, and may come across adaptation-related instruments, but also ongoing action at the city level. So, for example, they'll be looking at the disaster risk reduction, biodiversity protection, land use planning, existing regional or sectoral plans. Within the local authority, so when you look at those different plans, there'll be you'll be looking at the local adaptation plans. You'll be looking at the local risk and vulnerability assessments, local and urban development, waste and water management plan, or local renewable energy strategy. The mapping and analysis of these existing plans and policies is a good starting point towards a better policy integration. So why you'll be looking at this plan? Because I suppose they would have outlined I suppose any targets in terms of renewable energy or any support that was that was approved by the elected members, any future development or the future needs in the area in terms of I suppose transport or I suppose increase of the population, which means an increase of the waste, potentially like a change in the water management, as well as part of your climate action plan. The climate change in the adaptation, you need to look at the existing risk and after, I suppose, the future risk and vulnerabilities for your citizens. As the local authorities are responsible for in-situ implementation and adaptation measures, I've seen in Europe there are very different examples of all this in practice. Some cities have specific adaptation policies, others integrate adaptation into existing sectoral strategies, and mainstreaming adaptation into urban planning and development. Water management or health aspect are common ways to promote adaptation through existing governance mechanism and budgets. So as part of their, I suppose, development of the adaptation plan by different municipalities in Europe, you can see that they've been including all the different sectors and different plans, different sectors and strategies into their plan. So they can see that there's high number of sectors included in those just adaptation plan, included the urban planning and development, water management. They'll be looking at the health aspect, so flood protection, forest management, and agriculture. So as part of the process of reviewing the existing measure and existing plans, the next step is to go through, check, and compare the objectives and goals in the identified documents with the one for sustainable energy policy and resilient sectoral development. The aim is to establish whether these objectives and goals are supporting or conflicting. If such conflicts are detected in policy goals, they should be, amended and aligned with the CCAP goals. In order to do so, the local authority should invite all the relevant actors and stakeholders to discuss the conflict identified. They should try to reach an agreement on the changes that are necessary to update policies and plans. So, as a conclusion, therefore, yes, sorry, should have gone there first. So that's say. In terms of the general advice there to the plan review, you need to identify synergies and gaps, determine overlaps, synergies and gaps with the existing planning framework to identify the new energy plan, learn from past efforts. So you can consider successes and challenges from previous planning endeavors to extract valuable insights for the new plans development or revisions, and keep communication flowing all along the process to build consensus between stakeholders. Next item is the how to set up the framework for developing a regional energy plan. So as part of the process to complete your regional plan, just outline a few items. So first was the creation of the energy team, your steering committee, and then after your stakeholders group. You need to look at the engagement of your citizens, the review of your existing plans, the completion of your baseline inventory, or completion as well of the risk of vulnerability assessments. We'll need to identify, identify what are the targets, and then after, identify your mitigation and adaptation measures. When the plan has been completed, you need to look at the adaptation of the plan. So you might have to go through a consultation process. Need to be reviewed by the elected members. And you need to review all the comments from the different citizens. And then after, need to go through again the 18 members after consultation to be finally adopted. You might have to, depending on the country you are in, you might have to translate that plan, and again, you might have to go through a design company to make sure that the plan is, to make the plan a bit more, to incorporate pictures and graphs and make sure that it's aligned with your, different strategies and align as well with your the image of your local authority. And then after completion of the plan, you'll be looking at the implementation process and the monitoring and reporting. So because you have all those tasks, you need to identify for the elaboration and implementation what are the human resources that are required to complete all the different tasks that I outlined before. So as part of the CCAP elaboration and implementation, it requires the human and financial resources. Local authorities may adopt different approaches to use those resources. So they could be using internal resources. They'll be integrating the tasks in existing departments of the local authority and involved in sustainable development, energy and climate related topics. So you'll be looking at your environment, mainly your environmental department, or you'll be looking maybe at your corporate department if you'll be looking at measures in terms of your buildings and others, or your road department. You can be setting up a new unit within the local administration, and there you'll be looking at for that there's a rule of thumb in terms of about 1 person per 100,000 inhabitants in the local authority, or in the the region that you're operating in. You could be outsourcing and using private consultants, city networks, or universities, or regional agencies to complete some part of the tasks. Could be sharing one coordinator among several local authorities, and that could be very useful in term if you have a number of small local authorities in the area. You could get support from the local and regional energy agencies or covenant territorial coordinators. Or you could be as well be very if you're some sort of a bigger local. Suppose yeah, depending on the size again, depending on the size of the local authority, could be developing a joint CCAP in coordination and collaboration with neighboring local authorities. So it's mainly if the local authorities have at the same, suppose different plans with the same strategy and goals, could be developing your own regional one between the local authorities. See an example there, just in Ireland, of sharing one coordinator among several local authorities, because all the local authorities had to develop the same plan, similar plan, in a tight framework time frame of 12 months. Last year, the department created their own framework of external or private consultants, and the local authorities were able to procure those private consultants to do to complete the different suppose tasks, mainly the baseline emission inventory and the risk assessments. And because it was a tight time frame, maybe the value for money wasn't there in terms of I suppose the completion of the different tasks and yeah, and as well in terms of competition. The human resources allocated to the CCAP, they may be highly productive from financial point of view because they because as they'll be part of the process of the CCAP. You might see savings on the energy bills. You might see access to European funding for development of projects in the field of energy efficiency and the renewable energy sources. In addition, extracting as much as possible resources from inside offers the advantage of higher ownership, save cost, and support the very materialization of the CCAP. So when you we've seen that in the past, when you were the local authorities have been using private consultants or an external consultant, often the consultant will be adding a list of actions that would be very generic, not very specific to the local authority, which meant that the plan wasn't maybe not suitable for the local authority, didn't meet their needs. So whereas if you're using your own resources, you might be able to, I suppose, target a bit more, target more the actions, and they might meet your needs, or they might need the needs of your citizens. So, seen that in the if you're using internal resources, the plan or the implementation of that plan might be better in the future. And as well, not to forget that if you're using your internal resources, you need to make sure that adequate training is offered to the officers dealing with the CCAP elaboration and implementation. So you want to make sure that the people implementing the plan, elaborating or implementing the plan are suitably qualified and have the skills to do that, and that they can grow as well as the plan is progressing. So in terms of again, in terms of the setting up the framework, if we go back to the roles and responsibility matrix, we had the timeline on it. So as part of the framework, you'll be, if you notify all the tasks and who is assigned to the different tasks, you can be added the timeline and potentially as well. That's when you can link that or start to use that in terms of determining, notifying what will be the financial resources needed. And as well, if you require, for example, if there's a gap somewhere on one of the tasks, that's probably where you need to identify if you need an external consultant or if you need to get someone new in the agency, in the local authority, or other. So I suppose that matrix is not only required just to notify the roles and responsibilities, but as well can be potentially used to as a to identify the financial resources or the personal human resources needed in the future for the good elaboration and implementation of the plan. So as you set up your as part of the setup framework, and first, as you set up the framework, you establish your planning process. You need to align the planning and decision-making process with the original authorities framework. Determine the timeline, budget, and resources. So it's again a key aspect of such a framework is the financial allocation and required resources needed to be defined up front. So again, as part, you can use that your matrix that you had in the past, identify your have your tasks outlined, and after making sure that you have someone responsible for the task and potentially accountable for the task in the future. Need to evaluate the technical capabilities within your own staff or within the region, and that is required to identify if needed additional expertise. And again, if you require external assistance, depending on your own capabilities, there might be to commission certain aspects of the work to external entities, such as consultancies, agencies, or energy agencies. And as part of the allocation of resources, this will include getting funds, personnel, accessing technical expertise, and data to support the planning process effectively. So as a conclusion for this presentation there, when we are talking about determining the geographic area and scope of planning, you need to look at an area that match your administrative boundaries. In terms of the sectors, you'll be looking at sectors mainly on which local authorities have influence, or sectors that local authorities want to have an impact on. When you look at your roles and responsibilities, you need to make sure that you you have people from people from different departments, and that you involve the stakeholders that are interested, and as well that when you look at the stakeholders, that if they are relevant to your plan, that you are making sure that they're engaged in the plan. When you identify and review the existing regional plan, you need to look at your national, regional, and local. And in fact, you need the national will always very often come from the different European plan or coming from European directives. And you'll be looking at the adaptation section, mitigation, and as well as different adaptation plan, existing adaptation plan, existing mitigation plan, and as well plan in terms that will be looking at the future development of your area. And as part of when you set up your framework, you need to look at your timeline, the budget, resources, and after your technical capacities and capabilities.